The Tolkien Road, Episode 131, The Lord of the Rings, The Field of Cormallen. All right, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we continue our journey through The Lord of the Rings with Book 6, Chapter 4, The Field of Cormallen. Before we get started, please head on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback. It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. You can also stop by TolkienRoad.com, learn about previous episodes, and say hey. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TolkienRoad. And on Twitter via @TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening, and enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 131, The Lord of the Rings, Book 6, Chapter 4, The Field of Cormallen. Greta, how are you?
Cormallen. I'm good, how are you, John?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
So, special thanks to our executive producers, Dr. William Hutton and Justine Lloyd, as well as our other generous patrons. If you'd like to contribute to the Tolkien Road, visit us on Patreon, patreon.com/TolkienRoad. So, Mount Doom we've been to Mount Doom, the ring has been destroyed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And now here we are at the end of all things, as they said at the end of Chapter 3 there.
Yep.
So, why don't we dive on in?
Let's do it.
Okay.
No reason to waste any time.
Sounds good.
I loved this chapter.
Well, great. I'm going to adjust the microphones a little bit because you just moved right up and kind of messed up our arrangement here.
Oh, geez. I'm sorry.
Hopefully it doesn't sound too weird as I'm adjusting those things.
I just felt like I was far away and I didn't want any complaints about me not talking loud enough.
Well, it was a problem last time, so I tried to put them in a different place so that you would be, so that you would sound more loud and clear. Because I talk loud and you don't. And
I've been trying to talk louder.
Yeah.
Let the record show that I have been making the effort.
The record will show it.
Okay.
As long as they can hear you.
All right.
So yeah, here we are. We start off Book 6, Chapter 4 with the Eagles. We return to the end of Book 5, where the captains of the West had been at the gates of Mordor, and battle had ensued, and a troll had fallen on Pippin. That was the last thing. The last thing he remembered was, hearing someone saying the Eagles are coming, right? He thought it was. He thought it was just a.
Yeah.
He thought it was just a dream. Okay. If we go back to that, he says, where is it here? It says, so it ends as I guessed it would. Pippin's thought said, even as it fluttered away. And it laughed a little within him ere it fled. Almost gay it seemed to be, casting off at last all doubt and care and fear. And then, even as it winged away into forgetfulness, it heard voices, and they seemed to be crying in some forgotten world far above, "The Eagles are coming! The Eagles are coming!" For one moment more, Pippin's thought hovered. "Bilbo," it said. But no, that came in his tale long, long ago. This is my tale, and it is ended now. Goodbye. And his thought fled far away, and his eyes saw no more. So that's the last word we had on the battle of the captains of the West at the gate of Mordor.
Right.
And now here we are. The captains of the West were foundering in a gathering sea, it says. All about the hill the hosts of Mordor raged. The sun gleamed red, and under the wings of the Nazgul the shadows of death fell dark upon the earth. Aragorn stood beneath his banner, silent and stern, as one lost in thought of things long past or far away. But his eyes gleamed like stars that shine the brighter as the night deepens. Upon the hilltop stood Gandalf, and he was white and cold, and no shadow fell on him. The onslaught of Mordor broke like a wave on the beleaguered hills, voices roaring like a tide amid the wreck and crash of arms. And just with that, Gandalf stirred. He lifts up his hands and cries in a loud voice, "The Eagles are coming!" And then many voices crying.
So that's what Pippin heard, right? Okay.
"The Eagles are coming! The Eagles are coming!" The hosts of Mordor looked up and wondered what this sign might mean. There came Gwaihir, the Wind Lord, and Landroval, his brother, greatest of all the eagles of the north, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor, who built his eyries in the inaccessible peaks of the encircling mountains when Middle-earth was young. You might remember Thorondor from the Silmarillion.
Yeah, from the Silmarillion, yes,
right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of fan art for Tolkiendom, for Tolkien artists is, I can't remember who's by, but it's a great picture of Thorondor rescuing Mithros from the peak of Thangorodrim, which is like, just strung together like three names to make it sound as nerdy as possible.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually.
Thorondor rescues Mithros from the peak of Thangorodrim as Morgoth, the Black Foe, looks on. Let's see here.
I think we've looked at this. I think you've mentioned this before.
It's a great, and I've got it somewhere on the site too, I believe. Here we go, that one right there.
Yes.
Yeah, with Fingon.
Yes.
With Fingon.
So awesome.
Fingon enlists Thorondor's assistance to rescue Mithros. Yeah.
Yep.
So really cool pick.
It's beautiful.
It's by Rinthcog. If you go to DeviantArt and just Google Thorondor or search for Thorondor, you'll find the artist Rinthcog, and the depiction of Thorondor is impressive, to say the least. So,
yeah, I would, if I ever need to be rescued, that's who I want to come for me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, no doubt. You can't.
Well, you'd just be hoping he wasn't coming to eat you.
Well, yeah.
Because he's a huge
I said if I wanted to
bird.
be rescued, not eaten.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Didn't mean to mess up your fantasy. All right. So.
Dare you.
Thorondor is not part of this bunch. It's Gwaihir, but they are and Landroval, but they are descendants of Thorondor.
Right. Yes.
Behind them in long swift lines came all their vassals from the northern mountains, speeding on a gathering wind. Straight down upon the Nazgul they bore, stooping suddenly out of the high airs, and the rush of their wide wings as they passed over was like a gale. But the Nazgul turned and fled, and vanished into Mordor's shadows, hearing a sudden terrible call out of the dark tower. And even at that moment all the hosts of Mordor trembled. Doubt clutched their hearts, their laughter failed, their hands shook, and their limbs were loosed. The power that drove them on and filled them with hate and fury was wavering. Its will was removed from them. And now, looking in the eyes of their enemies, they saw a deadly light and were afraid. So, I guess this thing that's calling them back, the Nazgul back, is the realization. So this is just a few moments before the ring is destroyed, right? When Frodo puts it on, right, in Mount Doom.
Got it, yes.
And Sauron suddenly realizes, I made a huge mistake.
Yes,
I've just made a terrible mistake, right? And his will...
He's calling everybody
calls
back.
Calls the Nazgul back, like, alert,
yeah, right.
Red alert, super red alert, this
Code
is bad.
Red, Code super red.
Yeah.
Code red, orange, yellow, and...
all the codes at once.
Yes, all the codes at their highest level of intensity.
Right.
Firing.
On
all cylinders.
Mm-hmm. It's like Code Red, and I ain't talking about Mountain Dew here, people.
Mountain Dew. Ew.
Remember they had that
that was
Dew
horrible. Thank you for reminding me.
I drank a lot of that in college, I think. Yeah.
Of the Code Red?
Yeah, Code Red. Like, paper dew, whatever kind of Mountain Dew you get your hands on. It's caffeine.
Yeah, I don't
caffeine
like
rush, and you
Dew.
had a paper dew the next day. So
got a paper dew? Drink Mountain Dew. Anyway. I was like, oh hey, do and do.
Yeah, good
yeah.
one. All right.
And we're talking about Mount Doom, so it works.
Moving on. All right. Okay. Let's see. So the Nazgul are on their way.
Yep.
Then it says, all the captains of the West cried aloud, for their hearts were filled with a new hope in the midst of darkness. Out from the beleaguered hills, knights of Gondor, riders of Rohan, Dunedain of the North, close serried companies drove against their wavering foes, piercing the press with the thrust of bitter spears. But Gandalf lifted up his arms and called once more in a clear voice, "Stand, men of the West, stand and wait. This is the hour of doom." And even as he spoke, the earth rocked beneath their feet. Then rising swiftly up, far above the towers of the Black Gate, high above the mountains, a vast soaring darkness sprang into the sky, flickering with fire. The earth groaned and quaked. The towers of the Teeth swayed, tottered, and fell down. The mighty rampart crumbled. The black gate was hurled in ruin, and from far away, now dim, now growing, now mounting to the clouds, there came a drumming rumble, a roar, a long echoing roll of ruinous noise. So I'm thinking that this cloud that rises up from
I was going to ask you about
the tower is, let's see, far above the towers, high above the mountains, a vast soaring darkness sprang into the sky, flickering with fire. I'm thinking this must be like the soul of Sauron or something like that, the spirit of Sauron.
Oh, that would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, so,
yeah.
And Gandalf says, the realm of Sauron is ended. The ring-bearer has fulfilled his quest. And as the captains gazed south to the land of Mordor, it seemed to them that, black against the pall of cloud, there arose a huge shape of shadow. So maybe this is that huge shape of shadow I was thinking of. Huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning-crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous it reared above the world, and stretched out towards them a vast, threatening hand, terrible but impotent. For even as it leaned over them, a great wind took it, and it was all blown away and passed. And then a hush fell. So, the deed is done.
Yes.
The deed is done. So there's a little bit of a mop-up effort, right? All of the orcs and trolls and all of the kind of creatures of Sauron that Sauron, really fashioned. They just kind of run around like chickens with their heads cut off and eventually like fall into like pits or like run off into the woods or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you have a lot of the men who were fighting on Sauron's side, show a little bit more organization and valiance.
Right, but they actually fight.
Yeah, they do fight a little bit, but we don't learn too much more about that for now. But essentially, Sauron is gone.
Right.
Sauron is no more.
He has been defeated.
What
does Gandalf say? The shadow has departed.
The shadow has departed.
Yes.
And so Gandalf enlists Gwaihir and Landroval to carry him to Mount Doom, and there we find Frodo and Sam. So do you want to read here where it says Frodo and Sam could go no further?
Frodo and Sam could go no further. Their last strength of mind and body was swiftly ebbing. They had reached a low ashen hill piled at the mountain's foot, but from it there was no more escape. It was an island now, not long to endure, amid the torment of Orodruin. All about it the earth gaped, and from deep rifts and pits, smoke and fumes leaped up. Behind them the mountain was convulsed. Great rents opened in its side. Slow rivers of fire came down the long slopes towards them. Soon they would be engulfed. A rain of hot ash was falling. They stood now, and Sam, still holding his master's hand, caressed it. He sighed. "What a tale we've been in, Mr. Frodo, haven't we?" he said. "I wish I could hear it told. Do you think they'll say, 'Now comes the story of Nine-Fingered Frodo and the Ring of Doom'? And then everyone will hush like we did when in Rivendell they told us the tale of Bear in One Hand and the Great Jewel. I wish I could hear it, and I wonder how it will go on after our part." But even while he spoke so, to keep fear away until the very last, his eyes still strayed north into the eye of the wind, to where the sky, far off, was clear, as the cold blast, rising to a gale, drove back the darkness and the ruin of the clouds.
Keep going, yeah.
Okay. And so it was that Gwaihir saw them with his keen, far-seeing eyes, as down the wild wind he came, and daring the great peril of the skies, he circled in the air, two small dark figures forlorn, hand in hand, upon a little hill, while the world shook under them, and gasped, and rivers of fire drew near. And even as he espied them and came swooping down, he saw them fall, worn out, or choked with fumes and heat, or stricken down by despair at last, hiding their eyes from death. Side by side they lay, and down swept Gwaihir, and down came Landroval and Meneldor the Swift. And in a dream, not knowing what fate had befallen them, the wanderers were lifted up and borne far away out of the darkness and the fire.
All right, right on. So
they arrived just in time.
Frodo and Sam are rescued.
Eagles.
Yep. The land of Mordor is falling apart, being engulfed in flame, and
right.
Frodo and Sam are rescued by the eagles.
Yes, not a minute too soon.
Right.
What a touching scene, right, where they are expecting to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love how Sam just he's just determined to keep things positive. as positive as he can until the very last. Like, he's so set against despair, and he's, like, looking for whatever little, silver lining, whatever little piece of positivity he can wring out. I think it's beautiful.
It makes me kind of think, like, because what he says here, that's a great, I'm glad you highlighted that. What he says here is, he says, "What a tale we have been in, Mr. Frodo, haven't we? I wish I could hear it told. Do you think they'll say, 'Now comes the story of Nine-Fingered Frodo and the Ring of Doom'? And then everyone will hush like we did when in Rivendell they told us the tale of Baron One-Handed and the Great Jewel? I wish I could hear it, and I wonder how it will go on after our part." Sam, one of the themes with Sam throughout the whole book has been just his love of, like, these stories and
that's true.
his fascination with them, and it's almost like a childlike fascination. I wouldn't say it's childish, but it's childlike.
Yes.
And
just that awe.
Yeah.
And
it makes me think that that's one of the things that helps Sam keep his head above water when things are going really bad, right? Is he just has these love of these stories, and then even in this moment he sees himself, he realizes he's been a part of a story like that, because he paid such close attention to all those old stories.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
He in a way he believed in those stories, and in the what do you call it? Just like the goodness, I guess, of those stories, and the goodness of the heroes in those stories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So something there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I think it's he clearly has great, he has great respect for those stories and for the people in them, and in a way probably aspires to want to be like them,
right,
in some way. And that I agree. I think that was probably those stories were probably a huge motivation for him.
Yeah.
And throughout this entire quest.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, next, they wake up in Ithilien, and some great stuff here. So, particularly great scene as Sam wakes up, and it says, "Full memory flooded back, and Sam cried aloud, 'It wasn't a dream! Then where are we?' And a voice spoke softly behind him, 'In the land of Ithilien, and in the keeping of the king, and he awaits you.' With that, Gandalf stood before him, robed in white, his beard now gleaming like pure snow in the twinkling of the leafy sunlight. 'Well, Master Samwise, how do you feel?' he said. But Sam lay back and stared with open mouth, and for a moment, between bewilderment and great joy, he could not answer. At last he gasped, 'Gandalf, I thought you were dead. But then I thought I was dead myself. Is everything sad going to come untrue? What's happened to the world?' 'A great shadow has departed,' said Gandalf, and then he laughed, and the sound was like music, or like water in a parched land. And as he listened, the thought came to Sam that he had not heard laughter, the pure sound of merriment, for days upon days without count. It fell upon his ears like the echo of all the joys he had ever known. But he himself burst into tears. Then, as a sweet rain will pass down a wind of spring and the sun will shine out the clearer, his tears ceased, and his laughter welled up, and laughing he sprang from his bed. 'How do I feel?' he cried. 'Well, I don't know how to say it. I feel... He waved his arms in the air. 'I feel like spring after winter, and sun on the leaves, and like trumpets and harps and all the songs I've ever heard.' He stopped and he turned toward his master. 'But how's Mr. Frodo?' he said. 'Isn't it a shame about his poor hand? But I hope he's all right otherwise. He's had a cruel time.' 'Yes, I am all right otherwise,' said Frodo, sitting up and laughing in turn. 'I fell asleep again waiting for you, Sam, you sleepy-head. I was awake early this morning, and now it must be early noon.' 'Noon?' said Sam, trying to calculate. 'Noon of what day?' 'The 14th of the new year,' said Gandalf. 'Or, if you like, the 8th day of April in the Shire reckoning.' So, beautiful, just wonderful scene here, of just, I mean, you can only think, like, what it must feel like to be Sam in this moment when he wakes up and he sees Gandalf standing there, who he thought was dead, right? So not only did he wake up after expecting that he and Frodo were going to die there in Mount Doom, but he wakes up in this beautiful place, right? This peaceful place of rest, and there's Gandalf. The first person he sees is Gandalf.
Yeah.
Well, he sees Frodo, and then he sees Gandalf.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So just amazing, and the whole
mind blowing.
Yeah.
I mean,
the whole is everything sad going to come untrue is one of
Yes.
my favorite lines in all of Tolkien's works. Maybe one of my favorite lines in all of literature. I'm not. It's great because untrue is one. I'm not sure that Well, I guess untrue is an actual word. Is like a technically actual word. I guess you could actually use it in a sentence. But just the idea of everything sad coming untrue, right?
lacking truth.
Yeah, not just that it was true at one point, but it's not true anymore. Right.
And it's not the same thing as that stuff not existing, right? I mean, it's more. He's talking more about the substance of things than their actual existence.
I mean, he's just talking about his own sense of being astounded at. It's like, and then this is the thing, right? Remember that episode we did on one of Tolkien's letters, Resurrection and the way things really work, right? Where he talks about he rides by this infirmary, and then just all of a sudden he has this epiphany, and he just says to himself, of course that's how things really work. Right?
Yes.
He has this epiphany, even though he doesn't know how to explain it. It's like this moment of infused knowledge and joy that beyond joy beyond the walls of the world, right? Like that, you can't qualify it, and to put it into a speech here makes it sound at best beautiful and poetic, but kind of nonsensical. But at the same time, what he's saying. He's communicating this idea of I never could have possibly imagined that I was going to wake up and see Gandalf, and first of all in this place, and see Gandalf standing in front of me. What else is going to happen? Gandalf, to him, the death of Gandalf was one of the saddest things for him, right?
Right.
And it's come untrue.
And now it's come untrue. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, and that took a kind of miracle, right? It's not like Gandalf fell and then he just grasped onto something else and he happened to still be alive. No, he died.
Right. Yeah.
In whatever way
and his death
wizards
came
can
untrue.
Die. Right.
Yeah, it came untrue. Yeah.
So
it's the resurrection of all things, right?
Right.
Isn't that what he's kind of getting at?
The death is not the end, right?
Right. Exactly.
So let's see here. I wanted to find the dates. Do the dates on do the math on the dates, or the dates on the math.
Oh, okay. So he says the 8th day of April.
And yeah, so the 25th of March is when they destroy the ring and when they're rescued, and then it's the 8th of April that this happens.
So they've been asleep that whole time?
Yes.
Wow.
So for 2 weeks.
I think that
basically
qualifies as a coma.
Yeah. I think there must have been some kind of special, because I think it talks a little bit about that later, they've had some kind of special sleep or...
Oh, they had some kind of special where are they? Ithilien medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, to kind of help them sleep.
What does it say here later?
Well, I know we've talked about this before, but the significance, right, of March 25th in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Is the feast of the Annunciation.
Right.
Right. Which is Jesus, the first is, yeah.
And it also is, it's possible that the first Good Friday was, that the actual date of the crucifixion was March 25th as well.
Oh, interesting. Right? Okay.
Because the day we celebrate Good Friday changes every year.
Right.
Right. According to the I think it's according to the Jewish calendar. Because
it's confusing.
of Passover.
I've tried to figure out how Easter is calculated each year, and it's confusing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but yeah, March 25th could have very well been the actual date of the crucifixion as well.
Okay.
So anyway, so it's like, coincides with the couple. We did an episode on that, or
right. Yeah, so I just wanted to call it out again.
Back, yeah.
So it's clear that this is a day. That's a day of salvation, right? March 25th.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's one of the ways in which Tolkien, one of the things that Tolkien meant when he said that, of course, it's a fundamentally religious and Catholic work, unconsciously so at first, but consciously so in the revision, right? He kind of went back and
stuck in some key dates,
tweak things a little bit. So yeah. So yeah, just I love this scene. It's such a wonderful scene. Almost
really
a heavenly scene. They wake up, they find that Aragorn is king.
It's just like it just keeps getting better and better and better. Like, and up till this point, the last bits that we've been reading, it's been so dark. Just battle after battle and obstacle after obstacle, and I mean this is almost like this is like the sun. I mean, this doesn't even like really come close, but I feel like this chapter is like the sun coming out after. It's like a tornado, right? It's like an extended tornado, and then the sun has come out.
Right.
I mean, it's just glorious, and it's almost like you don't even remember the effects of the tornado because this new day is so glorious. Like, you just can't even.
Yeah.
It's almost like.
No, it's almost like the
slate
day,
has been wiped clean.
It's like it seems more glorious because,
Well, yeah, because of
what came before it.
Because of what came before it. Right, but it's almost too much goodness to bear. I mean, it's like a piece of candy that's too sweet. I mean, it's just, not that there can be too much good, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's just like.
Well, it is, yeah. It's, there's just, I mean, there's several times, there's at least twice in the chapter where Sam bursts into tears, and they're tears of joy, right? And tears of joy are a funny thing because it's like, why do they happen? Well, it's just an overflow of happiness, right? An overflow of joy, right? Yeah. You're just filled. I mean, you're literally filled to over. It's kind of beautiful, that notion, like that you think of my cup overflows, right? And the fact that it's we cry as a result of having a lot of joy, and we cry when we have a lot of sorrow. We cry when we have a lot of joy, right?
Right. Yeah.
A lot of happiness, a lot of joy.
Yeah. It's an extreme emotion, an extreme response to an extreme emotion. It's an extreme, a response to an extreme emotion. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, let's see. So they have a light meal. They get up, they wash, they dress, and they head out into this beech grove, and a bunch of beautiful trees. And do you want to read this little section here as they came in to the opening in the wood?
As they came to the opening in the wood, they were surprised to see knights in bright mail and tall guards in silver and black standing there, who greeted them with honor and bowed before them. And then one blew a long trumpet, and they went on through the aisle of trees beside the singing stream. So they came to a wide green land, and beyond it was a broad river in a silver haze, out of which rose a long wooded isle, and many ships lay by its shores. But on the field where they now stood, a great host was drawn up, in ranks and companies glittering in the sun. And as the hobbits approached, swords were unsheathed, spears were shaken, and horns and trumpets sang, and men cried with many voices and in many tongues.
You want to read that? Long live the halflings. Praise them with great praise. Quii ferian anan. Angalarni ferianath. Praise them with great praise, Frodo and Samwise, Daura Berhail, Conin and Anun, Eglario. Praise them, Eglario, Alaiatate, Andave, Laitu Valmet. Praise them, Cormac Lindor, Alaita Tariana. Praise them, the ring bearers. Praise them with great praise. So
is that like half Elvish, half?
Yeah, it must be. Let's see. Let me look
English.
this up and see if we got a good translation of it. Long live the halflings. translation of it there.
You don't think they're just saying the same thing? Like,
I thought maybe that's what it was. Translation, please. Translation, please. It's Sindarin. Long live the halflings. Glory to the halflings.
okay.
Let's see. Noble Frodo and Samwise, princes of the West, glorify, and then the last two weird lines that are not English, weird lines because they're not English, are Quenya actually. So bless them, long shall we see them. Ring bearers, bless them to the heights. So, yeah. A little bit of Sindarin, a little bit of Quenya mixed in there.
Yeah. Keep everybody happy.
So...
Can't imagine Frodo and Sam were expecting this kind of reception.
No. I mean, it says, yeah. And so the red blood rushed blushing in their faces and their eyes shining with wonder. Frodo and Sam went forward and saw that amidst the clamorous host were set 3 high seats built of green turves. Behind the seat upon the right floated white on green a great horse running free. Upon the left was a banner silver upon blue, a ship swan-proud faring on the sea. But behind the highest throne in the midst of all a great standard was spread in the breeze, and there a white tree flowered upon a sable field beneath a shining crown and 7 glittering stars. On the throne sat a mail-clad man. A great sword was laid across his knees, but he wore no helm. As they drew near he rose, and then they knew him, changed as he was, so high and glad of face, kingly, lord of men, dark-haired, with eyes of grey. Frodo ran to meet him, and Sam followed close behind. "Well, if this isn't the crown of all," he said. "Strider, I am still asleep." "Yes, Sam, Strider," said Aragorn. "It is a long way, is it not, from Bree, where you did not like the look of me? A long way for us all, but yours has been the darkest road." And then, to Sam's surprise and utter confusion, he bowed his knee before them. And taking them by the hand, Frodo upon his right and Sam upon his left, he led them to the throne, and setting them upon it, he turned to the men and captains who stood by and spoke, so that his voice rang over all the host, crying, "Praise them with great praise!" And when the glad shout had swelled up and died again, to Sam's final and complete satisfaction and pure joy, a minstrel of Gondor stood forth and knelt and begged leave to sing. And behold, he said, "Lo, lords and knights and men of valor unashamed, kings and princes and fair people of Gondor, and riders of Rohan, and ye sons of Elrond, and Dunedain of the north, and elf and dwarf, and great hearts of the Shire, and all free folk of the West, now listen to my lay, for I will sing to you of Frodo of the 9 Fingers and the Ring of Doom." And when Sam heard that, he laughed aloud for sheer delight, and he stood up and cried, "O great glory and splendor, and all my wishes have come true," and then he wept. And all the host laughed and wept. In the midst of their merriment and tears, the clear voice of the minstrel rose like silver and gold, and all men were hushed. And he sang to them now in the elven tongue, now in the speech of the West, until their hearts, wounded with sweet words, overflowed, and their joy was like swords. And they passed in thought out to regions where pain and delight flowed together in tears of the very wine of blessedness. So,
I love that line.
Yeah.
And tears.
Tears of the very wine of blessedness.
Tears of the very wine of blessedness.
Yeah. I mean, that it's little passages like that. When you read those, like, that's Tolkien's own heart coming through.
Yes.
Like, in a way you could say, like, I'm sure he wanted to write this part, like this part of the book was a very important part of the book for him, because he wanted to give, I think, this almost otherworldly vision of the result of heroism, right? Of true heroism, right? Of everything sad will come and true, of blessedness, right?
Yeah, the reward of perseverance.
Right.
Yeah.
The happiness of the saint, right? The final happiness of the saint.
You do get that idea here, don't you?
Yeah,
you kind of get, like, this is how, like, a saint's reception into heaven would be. Don't you think? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you think about that, and you're like, Frodo and Sam just have to be like, here they are, these little, halflings, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're the smallest people here, by far.
Yeah.
But here all these people are just like, glorying, praise to Frodo and Sam, you know, making this big fuss about them, you know, and you think about where they started out, you know, just like they were these two little, two just regular old hobbits living in the Shire, right? Never having stepped outside of the Shire.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, especially for Sam, right? I mean,
he was a gardener.
You know?
Yeah.
And now here he is. And, you know, it's kind of like, oh, don't... I almost... It wouldn't have surprised me to have something in here where Sam's like, I don't make all this fuss about me, you know?
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
Yeah. You can kind of see that, like, that idea of, like, they've just got to be flabbergasted about all these people making this big fuss about them, you know?
Absolutely.
And
it's so beautiful. Like, it's just so beautiful.
It really is. Yeah, it's just something you want to bask in.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I feel like, and Tolkien does such a good job. Like, he makes, I think that's one of the things I love so much about this chapter is and he does this with other things too, but you just feel like you're there. You're experiencing it with them, and you're like you're in Frodo and Sam's heads, you know, and you're going through all of this with them, and you're, you know, you're kind of like that fly on the wall that's seeing everything, and it's just really, it's just awesome. Like, just, and especially just remembering where they've been, even just 2 weeks prior to this, you know, they thought they were going to die as Mount Doom comes crashing down around them, you know, and here they are. It's just awesome. Right. I love that thing. I know Tolkien was not a fan of escapism, but this chapter especially, just, it kind of had this, like, as I was reading it, I felt like I was being transported to another world.
And remember, he distinguished between escapism and escape, right?
Right.
Escapism is where, you know, it's like, escapism is kind of petty, right? And I don't think he hated on escapism. The reference to escapism comes from on fairy stories,
right? Yeah.
And he actually kind of he kind of owns the accusation that people threw at him for being a writer of fantasy and a lover of these kinds of stories of like fairy tales, right?
Yeah.
And he took the idea that people would throw, you know, like realists would throw at him of like, oh, you're just an escapist, right? You just want to escape from the problems of this world. And he threw that back at them and said, like, yeah, I am, right? And can you blame somebody? Can you blame the prisoner, you know, who's unjustly imprisoned for wanting, you know, for remembering fondly the things, or, you know, for not falling prey to the lie that nothing lies, that there's nothing in this world other than the prison, other than the prison cell and the prison walls, right? There's nothing beyond the walls, right? That's what he took issue with, right? Was these people who want to say that what you see is what you get, right?
Yes.
In this world,
right? And
for Tolkien, it's like, no, this is this world. There's eternity beyond it, right? This world is a temporary and passing thing,
right?
And there's eternity beyond it,
right? Something even better waiting for us.
Exactly. So
yeah,
that was for him one of the things, the powers, you know. So he illustrates the power of escape here, right? That, and you know, I think it's, well, we landed on that, right? That maybe this is, in a way, Tolkien is giving us a picture of how he might have pictured the saints' reception into heaven, right?
Yeah.
Well done, good and faithful servant, right? And all the other saints making a fuss about you, right?
Right.
So yeah, really, really beautiful.
It is. It's just
picture.
Yeah.
And it helps strengthen you, like, and when you're going through your own dark times, right?
No doubt. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say, like, you know, gosh, this book is 60 chapters long, you know, 61, 62, 63 chapters long. I did the math the other day. And we're about, you know, we're getting close to the end. We're like 55, 56 chapters through. So it's been a long haul, you know, and we did the Silmarillion before that. And we've done a lot of other episodes as well. We're still going to do the Hobbit after this. And who knows what else beyond that. But, you know, this has been a long journey, right, through this so far.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it's helped me so much, you know, just in various, in in like changing my perspective just on everyday difficulties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not being so easy to give in to, like, kind of not big despair. Like, it's not like I'm tempted to give in to like this huge existential despair all the time. Although that's, I think for a lot of us that happens more often than not, like, than we care to admit to ourselves. But just like everyday little like mundane kind of despairs, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, instead of like looking for ways to medicate about whatever you're unhappy about, instead you just like, you resolve and you press on.
Yeah.
You're like, I have a job to do, I have a task to do, I'm gonna do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think of Frodo, I think of Sam, I mean, they're strong examples in that regard,
For sure. Yeah.
So
very, very much so.
Anyway, so yeah, so we jump ahead a little bit and to the feast, and then they catch back up with Merry and Pippin. Funny little scene here. Do you want to read where they say why, or what it says, but when after the standing silence?
But when, after the standing silence, wine was brought, there came in 2 esquires to serve the kings, or so they seemed to be. One was clad in the silver and sable of the guards of Minas Tirith, and the other in white and green. But Sam wondered what such young boys were doing in an army of mighty men. Then suddenly, as they drew near and he could see them plainly, he exclaimed, "Why, look, Mr. Frodo, look here! Well, if it isn't Pippin, Mr. Peregrine Took, I should say, and Mr. Merry! How they have grown! Bless me! But I can see there's more tales to tell than ours." "There are indeed," said Pippin, turning towards him, "and we'll begin telling them as soon as this feast is ended. In the meantime, you can try Gandalf. He's not so close as he used to be, though he laughs now more than he talks. For the present, Merry and I are busy. We are knights of the city and of the mark, as I hope you observe."
Yes, well, we've been up to our own
Yes.
things.
Yes.
We are knights of the city and,
Right.
of the mark.
You think you're the only ones that have been off having amazing adventures that everybody wants to hear about? No.
Yeah, plus we're taller than you are now.
Right, 3 inches.
Because we've been hanging out with the Ents and drinking Ent
Right, yeah. I love this, how he's like this little, just a couple paragraphs later, it says, "Orcs and talking trees and leagues of grass and galloping riders and glittering caves and white towers and golden halls and battles and tall ships sailing. All these passed before Sam's mind until he felt bewildered." I just love that little, it's kind of like, all right, let's try and summarize the last, 50 chapters into
right.
like a sentence here. But yeah, it's just wonderful.
Yep. Yes, indeed. So yeah, the fellowship is, most of the fellowship is reunited here. We have Merry, Pippin, Frodo, Sam, Gandalf, Gimli, Legolas, Aragorn. Of course, Boromir passed away.
Right.
At the beginning of the Two Towers. But the rest of them are reunited here. And so we'll jump ahead a little bit to Legolas's song here. So it says, and I said, so everybody's going to sleep, so it's like sleep time again. And Legolas says, "And I shall walk in the woods of this fair land, which is rest enough. In days to come, if my elven lord allows, some of our folk shall remove hither, and when we come, it shall be blessed for a while. For a while, a month, a life, 100 years of men. But Anduin is near, and Anduin leads down to the sea. To the sea! To the sea! To the sea! The white gulls are crying. The wind is blowing, and the white foam is flying. West, west away, the round sun is falling. Grey ship, do you hear them calling? The voices of my people that have gone before me. I will leave the woods that bore me. For our days are ending and our years failing. I will pass the wide waters lonely sailing. Long are the waves on the last shore falling. Sweet are the voices in the lost isle calling. In Arisea, an elven home that no man can discover, where the leaves fall not, land of my people forever." And so singing, Legolas went away down the hill.
Now this is like Legolas. We've talked. I remember about Legolas's longing for the sea.
Right.
Before now.
Yeah, the sea fever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of just reminiscent of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now remind me. So they're in Ithilien.
Ithilien. Yeah. Right.
Which is where?
Ithilien is that land on the other side of the mountains of Mordor. Right. So it's on the east bank of the Anduin. Okay. So Minas Tirith is on the west bank. Right. And then Osgiliath is the city that's on the Anduin River, and then Ithilien is the region they had to march. The captains of the west marched up, and then over to get to the gate of Mordor. Okay. And Frodo and Sam came down through Ithilien, and that's where they met up with Faramir, before they passed over.
Okay.
The mountains.
So in this little poem, this little song, is he talking about the Anduin, or is he talking...
Yeah, he's talking about the Anduin.
He is talking about the Anduin,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he's talking about, the Anduin leads down to the sea.
I see,
right?
Yes, okay. And that's where he wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Lost Isle, sweet are the voices in the Lost Isle calling, that's Numenor. I'm sorry, you might be referring to the lonely island Erisea, Tol Erisea, an elven home that no man can discover. Long are the waves on the last shore falling. So, he's hearing the call of the Blessed Realm, right? Mm-hmm. Which is the place that his people have always been called to, that the elves have always been called to, right? Now, remember, Legolas comes from the Sylvan elves, who they were not actually the Sindar. They were not the people of the Silmarillion. These were the elves that didn't make it as far as even Beleriand, right?
Okay.
Because you remember, you go back, the elves started way off into the east, right, of Middle Earth, right? And some of them didn't even start out on the journey. Those who did, different groups kind of fell off as they continued to go west in the ancient world, right, before the First Age. And it was only the Noldor, the Vanyar, and the Teleri that ultimately made it to Valinor, right?
Okay.
The Sindar were the ones that stayed behind in Beleriand, right, which was the westernmost land of Middle Earth. But there were other elves that stayed behind, green elves that stayed behind in different parts of Middle Earth that kind of got halfway and didn't keep going.
Right. Okay, yes.
So, remember, Legolas is descended from one of those groups of Sylvan elves who started out on the journey, but they didn't make it all the way. Right?
Got it.
So, so he's hearing that call of the sea, because all elves are called to the sea in that sense, and ultimately called over into the Blessed Realm. Right?
Gotcha.
So,
yes.
Being closer to the sea than he ever has really been, he's hearing that much more acutely now. Right? So, that's part of the draw for him, of course. Yeah. And so singing, Legolas went away down the hill. Then the others also departed. So the others depart. Frodo and Sam went to their beds and slept. And in the morning they rose again in hope and peace, and they spent many days in Ithilien. So a little vacation for them. Sam, kind of dreams that maybe he'll get a chance to spy a great Oliphant, but to no avail, unfortunately, for poor Sam.
Well, he's already seen one, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he wanted to see another one up close, I think.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Well, Merry and Pippin had probably told him all kinds of stories about seeing Oliphants and that kind of thing at the Battle of Pelennor Fields. So.
Yeah, that's probably true. Then Sam can just be like, oh, wait, are you guys the ones that destroyed the ring and, ended all evil for all time? No? Oh, okay. Then you can just be quiet now. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Sam, Greta.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Sam would say.
Well, he could possibly if he got really annoyed with Pippin and Merry rubbing the Oliphants in his face.
I think they're just all happy.
They probably are.
All really happy. But you're right. If he wanted to rub it in his face, he could.
Yeah, he totally could. Yeah. If I were him, I would.
In your face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this chapter?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
So when the chapter ends, they're still in Ithilien, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Just hanging out.
I believe so.
Recuperating.
Double check.
Recovering.
I don't think they've traveled on yet.
I don't think so.
They're making ready for Minas Tirith. Let's see.
So.
Oh, wait. But at the last, when the month of May was drawing near, the captains of the west set out again. And they went aboard ship with all their men, and they sailed from Cairandros down Anduin to Osgiliath. And there they remained for 1 day. And the day after they came to the green fields of the Pelennor, and saw again the white towers under tall Mindaluin, the city of the men of Gondor, last memory of Westerness, that had passed through the darkness and fire to a new day. And there in the midst of the fields they set up their pavilions and awaited the morning. For it was the eve of May, and the king would enter his gates with the rising of the sun.
So they have actually started.
Yeah, they do set out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just FYI, Cairandros is this little place right here. So there's I think the river, so it's basically they travel from here down the river to Osgiliath, right, is what it's saying, in order to return to Minas Tirith.
I see.
Right. So.
All right,
let's
so
do...
The king's on the move.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. He's probably got this playing on his
Probably.
iPod as he,
yeah,
rides his entrance into Gondor. Here he goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
Ooh. You almost lost it there.
No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to mix it up a little bit.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Right on.
Yeah.
All right. We don't have any haiku from our fans.
Yeah, we're kind of recording a little early, so.
Well, we are. It's also, Thanksgiving was last week. It's kind of a, busy time of year.
Yep.
So we won't take it personal, guys, but we do love hearing from you when you do have the time to write.
Right on.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I win.
You got it.
I'm going first.
Okay.
All right. Winter turns to spring. Everything sad comes untrue. The quest is fulfilled.
Nice.
Yeah. I thought it was okay.
Respectable.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of. It was funny as I was reading this chapter, I was like, how can you can't summarize this chapter in a haiku? Like, it's just impossible. There's just too much beauty and goodness and wonderfulness in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I tried.
Wondrousness.
So, now it's your turn.
All right. Lost is recovered, fallen regained. Of course the sad shall come in true.
Nice.
Yeah. So we both used the sad.
I was going to say, we had similar themes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like it.
Right on.
It's good stuff.
All right. Well.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. So, next time, book 6.
Yeah.
Chapter 5, which is the Steward and the King.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll be doing.
Yeah.
Send us haiku.
It'll be, do it.
All right. Special thanks to our patrons, executive producers, Dr. William Hutton and Justine Lloyd, as well as Shannon Stockbridge, Josh Sosa, Brian Orr, Margaret Lyon, Emilio Perea, Zeke Farmer, Caleb Santana, James Applegate, Caitlin Fascista, Matt Scarrett, Al Taylor, Per Brenner, James Lindberg, Chris Loftus, Lawrence McGowan, and Richard Wall. Thank you very much.
You guys are awesome.
Mm-hmm. And thank you to all of our listeners.
Yes, thanks, guys.
And we will talk at you next time.
Indeed.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Please remember to check out truemyths.org and tolkienroad.com for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes, and consider supporting us financially via patreon.com/TolkienRoad. On our next episode, we'll continue our journey through the Lord of the Rings with Book 6, Chapter 5, The Steward and the King. Please send correspondence to tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.